Okay, I'm going to tie it all in here. The UFO disclosure and the current thing going down with the Gog and Magog, the kings of the north and the kings of the east coming down to forge an alliance with the Persians in the valley of Megiddo for the battle of Armageddon against the great Satan, the whore of Babylon, the big horn and the little horn. But first, let's check out what they're saying about the 6-month timeline for disclosure.
Is new UFO info about to come to light? The government released its latest UFO report yesterday. Some key findings from the report, according to former Department of Defense official under President Barack Obama, some UAP have potentially exhibited concerning performance characteristics, such as high-speed travel or unusual maneuverability. An arrow has conflicted these cases with potential U.S. programs. None of these UAP reports have been positively attributed to foreign activities. Well, according to News Nation, Washington correspondent Joe Khalil, there will be 2 members-only briefings, including one with the Department of Defense Inspector General Robert P. Storch and another with Inspector General of the Intelligence Community Thomas A. Monheim. He continued, the intel community, according to UFO whistleblower David Grush, has specific info Grush provided that he couldn't share publicly. News Nation has learned that Representative Tim Burchett and other lawmakers will soon gain access to the classified, sensitive, compartmentalized information facility room, where they will be able to view UAP documents. Here's Tim Burchett with more on what may be expected.
Do you go into the skiff with David Grush, or do you just go through the documents that he has assembled for you?
I believe, first of all, we'll go through with the documents. That would be a secondary thing, which I understand is in the works as well. But from what I understand, there's a lot more than Grush out there. Dave's a buddy of mine, but there's a lot more than Grush out there that have this information, and we're going to get to it. And that's why people are very nervous, and they should be at the Pentagon, because they've been covering this thing up since 1947. And now, all of a sudden, hey, 55% of America believes that there's something else out there.
According to Mark von Rennenkampf, legislation titled The Reverse Engineering Programs and offers legal amnesty if individuals with knowledge of materials come forward within 6 months. He tweeted, extraordinary UFO legislation zeroes in on abuse of independent research and development IRAD provisions to illegally hide UAP retrieval and reverse engineering programs from Congress. In a historic congressional hearing, Grush specifically mentions IRAD. Is that a coincidence? Joining us now to discuss is opinion contributor at The Hill, Mark von Rennenkampf. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me back, guys.
So this sounds like we finally may, or at least Tim Burchett may, finally get to see some actual documentation that has been alluded to, hinted at, but not made broadly available to the public. How big a deal is this potentially?
I think it could potentially be extraordinarily significant, or more likely, it could be less significant, because as we've seen over and over and over again, the government likes to play this game. They go through these extraordinary verbal gymnastics to kind of hide what's actually going on. Whether that's all coordinated or not, I don't know. It's a good question. But look, the bottom line is inspectors general, which are the internal investigative bodies within government agencies, are generally very, very cagey about speaking about active investigations. And I think it's fair to assume, and individuals have reported that that there is an active investigation, a potentially fairly significant investigation into the whistleblower's claims of a crash retrieval program. So, boy, it could be explosive, but I'm going to temper my expectations and err on the side of the inspectors general will be cagey and will give minimal information at best at this point.
But this access to this classified, sensitive, compartmentalized information facility room seems to me to be about whether or not people can look at primary documents, right? The foundational evidence that's supposed to support some of the claims that we've heard whistleblowers raise at the hearings we've had so far, but they've been typically said things like, I know someone who saw something, I don't have the first-hand knowledge. Does access to this room mean that whoever comes out of there is going to be able to say, I saw photos of X, or a piece of the hull of Y, or DNA tissue of Z?
We would hope that all of that evidence is going to be carefully and artfully laid out in front of Tim Burchett. Tim Burchett is known as being very outspoken and has openly expressed he has very little trust in the executive branch. So again, I would be cautious about the Inspector General just opening up the books here for Congressman Burchett and all the other members that will be in the skiff in that compartmentalized information facility. I don't know is the answer, but I would hesitate to go down the path that they're just going to go full kimono and open everything up at this point.
Over the past 6 months, we have
been very in the news lately over the last several weeks and months. We've covered a lot here at The Hill. News Nation, our sister channel, has done a lot of great work, including that initial David Grush interview. I worry that as the focus of the nation and so much of the news media understandably turns toward what's going on in Israel-Palestine, that there could be a easing off of the pressure to actually deliver what has been suggested by whistleblowers with respect to the UAP subject, and there will be some opportunity to, I guess, get away with it again, if that's the right terminology, if there is, in fact, stuff being hidden from us. Is that a rational fear that I have?
Robbie, it is, but maybe I'll provide some counterpoints out there. And first, I'll agree with you. Yes, absolutely. There are several other narratives. I mean, we could look just at the turmoil, if we want to call it that, in the House in terms of leadership. That's another element that is putting up some roadblocks to some really extraordinary legislation, UFO-related legislation that was proposed by Senator Schumer. So that's another hurdle. But I think with the gravitas of somebody like Senator Schumer proposing the remarkable legislation that he did, and I'll just quickly recap, it mentions and defines non-human intelligence, it mentions it 24 times, and it basically reads like a carbon copy of the whistleblower's allegations that there is a secret, illegally run UFO retrieval and reverse engineering effort. And that legislation was proposed by the Senate Majority Leader. So I have a hard time. Yes, there are competing stories, and these are very important stories, but I have a hard time thinking that would overrule this very significant legislation. I would also add, just very briefly, that there's a separate piece of legislation, part of a larger bill, the National Defense Authorization Act. Sorry to go down all these rabbit holes, but I know you guys have expressed, and I share this some frustration about kind of the lack of details and evidence, and I think you guys have maybe expressed a put up or shut up kind of mentality, which I sympathize with. But I want to highlight that legislation, this other piece of legislation, it grants what's known as immunity or safe harbor to individuals who have knowledge of these potential secret programs. It gives them 6 months after President Biden signs the legislation, if it's passed as it is written, gives them 6 months, the clock starts ticking. And if they come forward in that time, they will not be subject to legal charges or legal jeopardy. So I want to just point out that there is significant legislation. I don't think it'll go away despite all the significant events that are happening. And there is a countdown if that is passed as it is written.
Mark, thank you so much for staying on top of this and talking with us today.
Thanks so much, guys. Appreciate it.
So now in a previous video that I made, there's a reference to this National Defense Authorization Act 2024 that has a 300-day timeline where they are required to disclose to the public any knowledge or materials they have about these things, whether it's non-human intelligence or UAPs, UFOs. And here we have a 6-month timeline that offers amnesty from the point where that legislation is signed, if it gets signed and passed through. And this amnesty was spoken of by, I want to say Stephen Greer, yes, at the Disclosure Project held in Washington, D.C. a few months back. And someone was interviewing him. Is it Greer? Yeah, I think it's Greer. Anyway, he said that such legislation was in the works, that there would be an amnesty period for those who have been involved in these projects to come forth with what they know and not be charged for the crimes that they were involved in. I'm thinking I might even be able to get in on the act, along with a bunch of other people that have been commenting in the comment section of my video showing the microchip implant. It looks like we've got another Me Too movement, the subdermal microchip implant version of the Me Too movement. Building in the comments section, there's at least 3 or 4 different people now. They're saying, oh, I got one, I know someone that's got them. And Gerb, codename Gerb. You might want to get in on the act. That would be my dad. I'm not sure. They might say, well, that isn't exactly non-human intelligence or UFO related, so I don't know if we could afford the amnesty to those people who were involved in such an operation as widespread microchipping of children at birth on military bases and in private hospitals. But in the era of disclosure, the atmosphere and the environment of this type of disclosure, you will find people that are more receptive to the idea, lawyers, like personal injury attorneys that will take the case and file the suits for people that have such microchip implants because we are in the era of disclosure. Right now, that's not the case. You wouldn't find a judge or an attorney who would take this case, and even if they did, the Department of Homeland Security would step in and say drop the case for reasons of national security, and the judge and the attorneys would all have to suddenly drop the case. So that was kind of a sidebar about this 6-month amnesty period. This is what Stephen Greer was saying was already in the works, and when someone interviewed him and said, is this legislation passed or is it in the works? He said, I don't know, I'd have to follow up on it to see if it's officially passed yet and formulated, but it's already a done deal. The people have already decided, the real decision makers. It's not up to Biden whether or not he is going to sign it into effect. There are people above him. There are powers that be. There is a higher law. And people ask me, why don't you extract your implant? Who would I prove it to? We do not have a justice system right now, but after worldwide regime change, then it would be appropriate to come forth, along with others. Right now, you wouldn't get compensation or resolution or vindication. You would get silenced if you come forth with a microchip implant and knowledge of multiple other people that have the same implants. So, worldwide regime change is underway. I've spoken before about how we're on a consciousness farm that's been hijacked by cattle rustlers. The holy rancher come along and plants the seeds for consciousness to grow and leaves a few people in charge. You might call them like fallen angels. But they redirect the consciousness farm in order to suit their own purposes, in order to get all these livestock, human livestock, to serve us. We suppress their consciousness. It is not about growth and development of their consciousness and allowing it to thrive for the purpose that was set forth by the holy rancher that started this consciousness farm. It's the people that he left in charge or that come along behind him like cattle rustlers and redirect the growth and development of this culture of consciousness within these humans. And redirect it towards our own aims, like installing all of these religions. And the people that have been downloaded with this religious programming are like sleeper cells that are just waiting to be activated and sent out to the battlefield as soon as their religious programming is triggered. And we're on the verge of that right now. I think these two things happen to coincide. It's not a random coincidence that they're both happening at the same time. They have been given an ultimatum. The powers that be that we know of have been given an ultimatum by powers and authorities that are higher than them. There is a higher law that will be in effect soon after this worldwide regime change. And they've been given an ultimatum. Either you make the disclosure or we will do it for you. And if we do it for you, you will have no more authority in the hearts and the minds of the people. There is a difference between power and authority. Power is anything that allows you to achieve your objectives despite obstacles and resistance that stands between you and your objectives. Authority is the consent of the governed, of the people themselves, their consent to allow you to govern them and wield the power that you wield. And if you guys don't participate in this disclosure and that time clock comes to an end and we come out of the closet for you, You will no longer have any authority in the minds of the people. If you want to retain any of your power and authority, you better get started with this disclosure process. Like deals were made with Eisenhower and you guys haven't held up. You had 50 years to bring these people up to speed about their understanding of their place in the universe and that there are other intelligences out there and that they are on a consciousness farm which is sealed and contained in order that they do not spread the mental illness of their violence and hostilities and animal-like tendencies. That's why they're contained within this consciousness farm until they grow and develop to a certain way and exhibit certain behaviors. And you were given 50 years from the Eisenhower era for the process of disclosure to incrementally get them up to speed of knowing who they are, where they are, how they got here, and that they're not the only ones in the world. And you haven't held up to your end of the deal, so you've got another 9 months. 9 months from now, we will do it with or without you. So you better get underway in the process of doing it yourself if you want to retain any sort of authority. Because once this comes out, if the people see that you kept this from them and you don't participate in the disclosure process, you will have no authority. None of them will give you consent to govern them any longer. So you have 9 months. And the powers that be here, the cattle rustlers, say, oh, okay, yeah, we'll do that. We'll get the process underway. But truly, in the process, the cattle rustlers would burn the whole place down before they'll allow the livestock to go free, like hijackers that have hijacked a plane and are willing to take the whole thing down if they don't get their demands met. That's why we see all of the programming of the Bible adding up to trigger them to destroy themselves. With the kings of the north and the kings of the east, Gog and Magog, coming down to make an alliance with the Persians, Iran, to battle in the Valley of Megiddo, the Battle of Armageddon, against the Whore of Babylon, the Big Horn and the Little Horn, U.S. and Israel, Zionist entity, triggering the programming of these people to self-destruct, burn the whole place down, while at the same time saying, oh, we're underway, we're doing the process, we're in the process of disclosure, it's just going to be, it's going to be incremental, and we've got the legislation underway. Meanwhile, at the same time, we're setting the dominoes up to burn the whole place down, because we would rather that than give these cattle away. They're our cattle, and before we will let them go free, let my people go, we will burn the whole place down. And that's what's underway right now. Israel hasn't gone ham. See, I'm still in touch. Got my finger on the pulse, know what the kids are saying. Israel still hasn't gone ham in Gaza. They're waiting for the U.S. to get there with big firepower to hold back Iran and Hezbollah from the north. So here's the dominoes and how they fall. Israel will go into Gaza and stomp the shit out of everyone, which will trigger Hezbollah to come in from the north, which is a proxy of Iran, and thus the United States will have to start stomping Hezbollah and Iran, and Russia will not sit back and watch Iran get destroyed, so then Russia comes into play. That's the kings of the north, and soon after follows the kings of the east, China. I remember hearing Jack Van Impe lay this out. Back in 2003 or 4, when I was watching some of those televangelists, Jack Van Impe and his wife Rexella, and they explained Gog and Magog coming down into the Valley of Megiddo for the Battle of Armageddon, and I know there's different understandings and interpretations about the meaning of Gog and Magog, but his was that the land area of that is China and Russia, the kings of the north being Russia, the kings of the east being China, coming down to help the Persians, which is Iran. And that's about to go down. It's just a matter of time. As soon as our battleships reach Israel and get within striking distance of Iran, that's when Israel's going to go into Gaza and all of the dominoes fall. So they're going to burn down this consciousness farm rather than let these livestock that they have redirected the growth, stunted the growth, and arrested the development in order to serve themselves and circumvent the whole purpose of the holy farmer, the holy rancher that is cultivating this consciousness on this consciousness farm. But there's some wild cards. I've heard a lot of people talk about, well, you know, Iran's got these missiles that go 1,200 miles and this and that'll lead to nukes. They're not taking into account the dragons, the UAPs that, as it says here on the screen, high-speed travel and unusual maneuverability. Just today, Custodian Files put out another video showing 2 of these buzzing an F-22. These UFOs outmaneuver us like a motherfucker. And with the directed energy weapons that are in play, nukes don't even matter. We can stop your nukes before they get off the ground. Lightning moves faster than rockets. Get it? So they think they got their wild cards and that they can plan the whole and make the dominoes fall in such a way, or that they have technology where they can challenge God, the whole kingdom of heaven, and burn this place down before they'll give it back and set these people free. That's where we're at. It is not a random coincidence that this disclosure process is happening at the same time as they've decided to initiate the Battle of Armageddon. Those 2 things are coinciding for a reason. Can you picture what will be so limitless and free, desperately in need of some stranger's hand in a desperate land? Do those lyrics not seem like they're about to make more sense than they ever possibly could have just a short time ago? This land is about to become very, very desperate. And these strangers' hands that we're going to be desperately in need of, they're on the brink of disclosure. Huh, what a coincidence. Come on, baby, take a chance with us and meet me at the back of the blue bus, or it hurts to set you free, but you'll never follow me. The other thing that seems to be at play here is that they are trying to get the human cattle on this consciousness farm whipped into a frenzy to demonstrate behavior patterns that are incompatible with the greater world. Because nothing suppresses and stunts the growth and development of consciousness like war. They want everyone to get armed up to the teeth and think, well, everyone else is getting guns and going at it, so I have to get a gun. And it puts people in their animal instinct mode. Fight, flight, or freeze when they feel threatened. Survival mode. Kill or be killed. Dog eat dog. Which are behavior patterns that are not compatible with those who are outside of this compartmentalized consciousness farm. That show that we are underdeveloped and even maldeveloped, like mutated in such a way that we are not capable of being salvaged, and whip everyone up into a frenzy to get them to destroy themselves. And even those that remain have engaged in such behaviors that they're no longer qualified to be extracted from this consciousness farm and introduced to their wider family. And here I'll reference the song Schism by Tool, because there has been a schism created between us and any other intelligent life forms, like we're in the process of disclosure. Cold silence has a tendency to atrophy any sense of compassion between supposed lovers. Cold silence, which we have had, we think we're the only one on this spinning ball and haven't heard from anyone for generations. Cold silence has a tendency to atrophy any sense of compassion between supposed lovers. You watch that music video, you will see it is about one intelligent species merging with another. Our better angels will not prevail if they bring out the worst in us by sending us into a frenzy, which is what's happening right now. And it's going exactly according to the blueprints that they set out when they indoctrinated these people with these religions. All three of the major religions have the same blueprint, and because these events are following that blueprint, for the Christians it's Gog, Magog, the Valley of Armageddon, the Valley of Megiddo. Gog and Magog joined the Persians in the Valley of Megiddo for the Battle of Armageddon. It's like someone who lives for 2,000 years programmed these biobot transceivers with these religions, and now it's time to hit the .exe file to execute. They have been programmed. Those lines of code that they have been programmed with have been lying dormant in the background. But as soon as we hit the .exe file, it activates all those programs of that religious programming like a sleeper cell, and all of those religious people are sent as an act of faith to show you're a good person. You want to go to heaven, don't you? Okay. And they're sent out to the battlefield. So their will to be a good person has been weaponized and used against them. I spoke about this extensively in the video titled Fiery Sermon from the Valley of the Shadow, about people's will to be a good person being weaponized against them and the great witch hunt that's coming. I'll leave that link in the description if you care to watch. DEWs, as in directed energy weapons, the dragons, as in the UAPs that demonstrate high-speed travel and unusual maneuverability, and the C-19 operation are all part of this culmination where this phase of our existence comes to a head, and it's the beginning of a new world and the end of this one, but most people won't make the transition. Most people will follow their self-destruct programming in the programming manual that they were programmed with in order to be a good person. And even if they're not religious, the Ash effect, to do and say whatever all your peers are saying and doing, or the Milgram effect, to go along with whatever the authorities tell you is mandatory, will take out those that are secular and not religious. They do it to themselves. Just like in C-19, it was all voluntary. No one was forced to roll up their sleeves. A lot of people say they were forced. I had to. They made me. None of that is true. They made sure not to cross the line and to leave your free will intact. And so it is with this coming process, where they're going to get us to do it to ourselves. You still have your free will. It's going to be very hard to exercise your free will and choose for yourself in such a high pressure environment, from peer pressure to the authorities and your peers. It's going to be difficult for anyone to abstain and say, no, I'm not joining in. I'm not participating in this. I've said before that the coming witch hunt will be the war on terror. You're with us or you're with the enemy, multiplied by the C-19 pressure that we saw from our peers and authorities, multiplied by religion, multiplied by racism. You're a species traitor if you're not with us and you show any sympathy or compassion towards them. I hope you can stand on a solid foundation of personally relevant and personally meaningful concepts of right and wrong, good and bad, personally relevant underlying priorities and principles that you can express through your standards of behavior, or you will be swept away with the current. Individuals find God, not groups. Narrow is the path, single file.